Joining us in the Informer studio, the member for Warrandyte, Ryan Smith. How are you?
Great, good to be back.
It has been a while. We've had a chance to talk about a number of things during COVID. Now, slowly things are opening up, thankfully, and we're starting to see not so much the city come to life, but a great many more Victorians starting to enjoy the fact that they can go beyond 5Ks. Some of them, in fact, have left the state already because they just couldn't wait. It's been this incredible period of control that we've never ever seen before, and suddenly people are getting a bit of fresh air. But I want to find from you your particular take. How do you think business, predominantly small business, and some of our industries are finding things, and how are they managing to get out of this this horrible period of disruption?
Well, I'm not entirely sure that all industries are getting out of this horrible period. I mean, from what I'm seeing, when I go through the city, I'm seeing for lease signs on retail stores up and down Little Collins Street, in the other areas where those boutique retail stores for men and women's clothes. I've spoken to cafe owners who say, yeah, it's great we've opened up, but I've got no foot traffic anymore. There's no one allowed in the city. Do you know office occupancy in the CBD is at 7%. In Sydney, it's 40. Yeah. In Perth, it's 70.
Yeah.
So
60 in Brisbane.
So if we're not having the people come in, how can hospitality, how can retail come back to life again? How can our vibrant Melbourne come back to the way that we love it?
I know that Sally Cap has got a real drive and a real idea that we need to be brave, we need to be bold, we need to show some initiative. Wouldn't you think that a government that has caused so much of this disruption would also be on that front foot, wanting to be almost locked in step and trying to be innovative? But I don't see it. I'm still hearing that the Australian Open may still be a possibility of not happening. Yeah. Now, seriously, the Premier has got to be the leader of hope, hasn't he? Hasn't he got to be the one that says, we're back in business, but we'll be careful about it?
Well, don't you feel like he wants to keep us locked down? Don't you feel like his government wants to maintain in some sort of control? That's what I'm feeling, and I think of all the things that used to make Melbourne great: the arts centre, the sports centre, the vibrancy, the culinary delights of our little laneways. But we don't have any of that anymore.
Well, we can't get into those laneways.
We can't, and that's the real problem. And if we don't have the foot traffic that comes as a result of people working in the city, lunchtimes, after work, Friday drinks, it's just going to be a slow, lingering death. And the government had an opportunity to show exactly those things that you're talking about, to show leadership with their budget that was released last week, but it didn't show anything. What it showed was, instead of giving people hope, it said our unemployment levels are going to be above the national average for months to come. It showed us that so many of the industries that are female dominated, the fashion industry, the creative arts industries, the fitness industries, there's no help to them at all. There's only help to big construction sites, male-dominated union sites. The small businesses have got nothing out of this budget. And if you're going to borrow $155 billion, you kind of want to think that it's there to help everyone, and it's just not.
I also understand that the public servants have been told to stay at home. Yeah. If you touched on earlier when you were talking about the foot traffic, unless we see public servants return to the city, to those beautiful big buildings in Collins Street or Latrobe, whatever, we're not going to see any activity of the magnitude that we need to put smile on people's faces again.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying before. If the Premier's going to show a leadership role like the Lord Mayor has, then lead by example, and the thousands and thousands of public servants who are currently sitting at home, conducting Zoom meetings, I'm sure being productive, but they're not there in the streets, they're not there in the laneways, they're not in our stores, they're not getting a coffee, they're not getting lunch.
Well, Chris Lucas will tell you that Chin
absolutely.
Chin, fabulous restaurant, but it actually thrives on the fact that the public servants will have dinner or they'll have lunch before they go to home and get on the train and do whatever. So they're in the city, they're staying, they're getting fed, they're being entertained, whatever. Unless that happens, unless we can see those numbers return, this is going to be one long, slow, dragged out recovery if then.
Yeah, and the vibrancy that we're so used to feeling in Melbourne is just going to take so much longer to come back. I mean, we just want to see Melbourne come back to life, don't we?
Do you get a sense that the Premier, along with a bunch of premiers across Australia, have actually revelled in this, this pandemic politics?
It's probably not politically correct to say so, but you can't help but feel that the daily press conferences, the ability to tell us what to do, where to go, to effectively muzzle us in so many circumstances, you can't help but think when I listen to the arrogance across the table in Parliament that there's got to be some degree. It feels like so much there's some degree that there is a perverse pleasure, and I'm only reciting what I'm hearing through my electorate and through broader communities as well.
How hard has it been through this disrupted year in Parliament to get you any sort of traction and any commentary going?
And I think that plays to the Premier's want for control as well. Do you know, in Parliament we're only allowed 6 opposition members into the chamber during question time. The government's allowed to have 20. So you can see even then the inability for us to really take it up to the government, to really get those questions answered. And
tell me about the brouhaha during the budget announcement. There was a number of questions that the opposition wanted to raise, and they were told they can't raise them.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Just explain this to those that aren't privy and weren't there. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and hearing. Yeah,
well, when these budget papers come out, an integral part of these budget papers is the Capital Works program. Yeah. It shows us what money's been allocated to major projects, how much has been spent, and if there's any cost overruns. Yeah. And you know what? There are cost overruns. There are cost overruns. That particular budget paper wasn't released. Can you believe it? And the Treasurer was asked on a radio interview, well, what are the cost overruns? Well, he said, I don't know. I mean, how can the Treasurer of the state, who manages our
finances,
you know, not know what the cost overruns are? I mean, it's bizarre. And to top it off, when we've borrowed $155 billion, the most this state has ever borrowed, the Premier, during the public accounts hearings, when asked, when are you going to start to repay this back? I don't know, he said. The Treasurer doesn't know what cost overruns there are, and the Premier doesn't know when we're going to start paying back the debt. I mean, these are the people who are managing our futures as Victorians.
And we've also heard in the last couple of weeks this word that's just cropped up because it seems to be the magical word at the moment, eradication. How can we be talking eradication? How can anyone sensibly be talking eradication when we're only as close as the next arrival at a quarantine hotel?
And can we find anyone who's confident they've got hotel quarantine right?
Because well, clearly we've had 6-7 months to get ready.
I'm not confident at all.
And by the way, do you know what QR codes are?
I do. I'm not sure the Premier does though.
Quick response codes. I have no idea. What have they been doing? What's the Health Department and others been doing? Yeah. We talk about contact tracing that New South Wales has used. Clearly some of the other states have fallen far behind or haven't grasped just how important it is to have a contact tracing team, that one is in the numbers, is substantial and can actually get to the nub of the problem, and actually they know how to go about the problem.
Well, the Police Minister on radio recently said just a few days ago they're still using pen and paper when every other state's electronically driven, and it's just amazing.
I went to pay for a permit, St Kilda Council, because Port Melbourne Council was closed. Goodness knows. Clearly I had to be funneled and channeled to St Kilda to pay, and you know what? Outside I couldn't find a place to park unless I had money.
Yep.
Through COVID, we're told cash is not the thing, it's supposed to be contact. No access to electronic apps, to download an app rather, and to pay it electronically. Nothing. Outside the St Kilda Town Hall. And then when I went inside, they said, can you put your name down here? I said, QR code?
Yeah.
No, pen and
paper.
Down.
It's pretty hard, isn't it? A lot of intrusions on our lives and a lot of inability to do some basic things.
Ryan Smith, I've been shaking my head for the last few weeks. I'm glad that there's one other person that's shaking their head the same way as I am. Really appreciate you coming in and giving us a sense. What have you got planned for Christmas?
We're going to be allowed friends. I'm glad we are, but I'll be with family and friends, something that we've all been missing for most of the year.
Absolutely.
Great to be back.
Well done. Ryan Smith, the member for Warrandyte, joining us on The Informer.